Hello, my fellow comic book collectors. It's Alan, the Comic Collector Geek, and this is the Wednesday video where I answer your questions. Each week, people ask me a bunch of questions, and I answer them the next week. That's what this is. So let's get into it. There's going to be a bit of an update in this video about last week's video, so it should be interesting. First question comes from Robbie Josephs. Alan, who are your favorite Golden Age writers? Well, I have a bunch. So I actually really like Dick Briefer. He did Frankenstein. I think he's a great writer. It's just I love writers that have a bit of fun with what they're writing, and Dick Briefer is kind of one of those guys that brought comedy to Frankenstein. It's really awesome. So I really like him. Another one I really enjoy is Al Felstein. He's a writer, artist. Well, so is Dick Briefer. You know, he did everything for both Junior and Sonny. I enjoyed that content. I think it's funny. It's lighthearted. It's kind of like Archie, but not. Bit more sexy version of Archie. So I like him. Gardner Fox. I feel like you have to sort of mention him because he's like kind of one of the big DC writers. I mean, pretty much, he's kind of one of the biggest writers for the Golden Age. Stan Lee is another one. He's a Golden Age writer. We always associate with him with more modern stuff, but he really started out in the Golden Age. And if you read some of his Good Girl or some even his superhero stuff, it's awesome stuff. He is a bit of a hack writer. He's got his formulas, but he does the formula works. You can't complain. He's a good writer. Another one that's interesting would be Dana Dutch. Dana Dutch did a lot of the work with St. John and Matt Baker, the artist, where it's just like beautiful illustrations mixed with sultry stories. And he's just a really great writer, just puts it all together, and it's brilliant stuff. Another one that's really kind of underrated, maybe, would be Bill Finger. His work on Batman. He's kind of like the unsung hero that probably should get a lot more credit for Batman. Definitely a great writer. So those are some of the ones that I like. There's probably dozens of writers that I could have mentioned, but here's some of the ones that were right off the top of the head. Another question that you asked, Robbie, 9.6, 9.8, and 9.9 and 10.0 are basically indigenous to modern books with some exceptions. Do you consider 8.5, 9.0, 9.2, and a 9.4 equivalent grade for Golden Age books? No. So you'd have to go even one more step down. So I would say like maybe 7.5 for like a lot of Golden Age books. 7.5 would be equivalent to a 9s, like in that 9 range, just because it is so hard to get certain books. Even a 7 is the top of the census. So I would say that 7.5 would be equivalent to the 9.6. I know it seems like a really extreme difference, but I would say that just because there are so many books where there aren't high grade copies available. Now, there are a bunch that you wouldn't expect that actually do have high grade copies available. And that's partly because if you look at EC Comics, for example, Bill Gaines, he collected his own comic. He had like file copies of every single issue EC published. So those, it's more one-to-one. It's, they're high-grade copies available. Whereas some other books, there weren't file copies, there weren't any collections of those books. And they're just almost non-existent. Centaur, which I was showing on Monday, is a good example of that, where they're just not high-grade copies of any of their published works available. Just really hard to find high-grade copies of those books. So it really depends with Golden Age on that, but a lot of the high-grade copies that we think of are actually from pedigrees, like the Mile High, the collection. I mean, but there's just one of those. It's not like the modern books where you have like 30 copies of a 9.8. It's a little different. or 100 copies of a 9/8 sometimes, or some even 1,000. I don't know. Like modern, it's like there's just so many high grade copies available. It's just different. It's different. So that's why I would say that lower, maybe 7.5 range would be equivalent to a 9.6. That's my belief. I'd like to hear people's comments on it in the comments below. What do you think? Paul David Cooper wrote, I believe Mint Hunter was illustrating that the return on investment from grading comics compared to their ungraded prices has narrowed substantially over the years. His examples were primarily non-Golden Age books. Okay, so remember that. That's not a question, but it's a statement. The next person asked a question. This is from my video last week where I talked about Mint Hunter and how I felt like he kind of cherry-picked examples of graded versus raw comics and the values associated. And my opinion is that graded books will generally go for more money than raw. His video was about how graded actually can go for less or equal value to raw books. So why get it graded? So we're going to get into it, but I have to read the next question, which was from Chick Sartorial, who wrote, and this is in all caps, just so you get a little bit of context as well. It's all caps, so he's screaming this at me. As I recall, like I feel like I have to say it that way, Mint Hunter did not cherry pick. It was random picks that he compared. And why not do the same experiment yourself, as you said here? Well, I've been called out. I gotta do it. I gotta show the receipts. I gotta prove myself that I'm not just cherry picking. So what I did was I try to keep it pretty random in terms of the books that I picked. What I did was I used my hottest Silver Age list from earlier this week, and I basically said, okay, let's look for these same books on eBay. I picked eBay because eBay has the most sales. It's just easiest. And I looked for raw versus graded books, okay? And saw how they compared. Do the example. And because it's, it was my hottest list, that actually wasn't that hot. It was like the prices had kind of dipped a bit on the graded books. So in a way, that's giving the raw books a bit of a chance, an opportunity. But these were books that I just picked from random from my list. I picked 3 books from my list, and I picked one modern book to kind of give that example as well. I just picked a random one, okay? So that was me being random. But these were all random examples. And I actually looked at a few others, but and they all got similar results, okay? So bear that in mind. I looked at not just these ones, but I looked at others, and they got similar results, okay? But I didn't feel like showing like 20 examples and just hitting the, really overdoing it. So this is 4 examples. It is what it is. Okay. Example number 1 is Captain America 109. Now, Captain America 109, you will see there's 2 listings on the screen. You will see this. I won't see this, but you will see it. One is a raw 9.2 that sold for $147.50. Okay? That's a 9.2. What they say it's a 9.2. Well, we have to kind of go with what they say. That's how that was the same way that Mint Hunter went. That he was saying that these raw ones, oh well, they say it's a 9.2 or they say it's a whatever grade it is. We got to assume that they're right, and it sold for the same amount as the graded one. That in itself is a bad example that he did, but we'll give people the benefit of the doubt. They are expert graders, and they are 100% accurate with their grades. Let's say they're 100% accurate. It's a 9.2. Okay? Well, that 9.2 sold for $147.50. Well, the graded 8.0 sold for $147 versus $192 for a graded 8.0. Even if you take $50, let's say, for the grading fee, well, that is still more than, or about the same, the same for an 8.0 as a 9.2, okay? So that means that a graded copy, and there's doubling effects that happen at those grades. Like, a 9.2 generally, should sell for 2 or 3 times what an 8.0 should sell for. So this is, they sell for the same price based on graded versus ungraded. So I think that kind of is a win for the graded book. My second example, and these were just random. I really didn't try to cherry pick. I really just went random. Was Amazing Spider-Man 31. And there was a raw 4.0, and I think it was a fair assessment that is a raw 4.0 that sold for $163.50. Okay, that's a reasonable price. But a graded 1.0, so a really low grade 1.0, sold for $235. Okay, there was a best offer ability on it, but they actually accepted they actually just paid it full on. I checked the GPA and they paid $235. So a 1.0 sold for, and if you minus the $50, it still sold for more than the 4.0. Okay, graded sold for more than the raw. Okay. Third example, Detective 298. There was a raw 6.5, and it sold for $482. Okay, so $482, good sale. That was a 6.5. A graded 5.5 sold for $810. Okay, and so that's like just a grade lower, and it sold for almost twice. It's not even comparable. These things are just one after one after another. The gradeds outperform the raws. So okay, so you're saying, well, these are all Silver Age books because it was my Silver Age list, right? Well, let's see how the random book that I chose from the modern era performed. And I picked Detective Kaiju #1. The reason I picked that was, I do a lot of shows with Chonko. And Chonko is always showing this one artist, Sept Shibina. Okay, so I was like, okay, I'll just search her whatever book, and I found Detective Kaiju. that was how random this is. It wasn't that I was cherry picking, I was just really being random. Now there was a buy it now for a 9.8 raw copy. Okay, so this is the highest you can get, because generally if you're doing auctions, you'll get lower prices than the buy it nows. The buy it nows, people usually pay a little bit because they're, they want to get the deal. They just want to get the book, not worry about, having to compete for it. They just buy it now. So generally people will pay up on the buy it nows. So a raw 9.8, and I imagine it probably is a 9.8, because if a book is basically just printed, you're gonna probably get a 9.8. It's probably just instantly bagged. There's very little chance that it wouldn't be a 9.8, but there is that possibility. And that's what people will pay more for, because once it's definitively a 9.8, people feel a little more comfortable. Well, a raw 9.8 sold for $99.99. It's almost $100 for a buy it now. Well, the graded copy, if you look at the screen, you can see I'm not, you can see the sold in auction, which is the worst way to get a sale. Like, there was actually other listings that I didn't show that were actually higher sales, where it was buy it nows for the 9.8 graded. I actually picked the worst example for the graded, like gave it the scrutiny of, like, selling it at auction. Okay, so a 9.8 graded book sold in auction for $177.50. So that's, even if you minus the $50, sure, it's annoying, pay the $50 for grading costs and all that kind of stuff, you're still selling it for 20% more than the raw. Even for a modern book, you do better with graded books. Now, you can probably find examples that completely contradict what I'm saying. And that was really what one of my points was in my video, that even when you pick random examples, and these were random examples, it is still cherry picking because you can't, there's just too many comics. There's just too many possibilities. Sometimes you'll find the story might be one way. Sometimes you might find it to be another way. But from what I could see, and these were all random examples, and every time I did this random example, I kept on getting the same results. But I only showed 4. And the point is, even my experience, mainly buying Golden Age, but I do buy Modern and Silver as well, is that generally graded books do sell for more. It's that certainty of the grade that people are paying extra for. And I just don't agree with Mint Hunter's assessment. I think he really did cherry pick. I don't think that, I just can't seem to science is all about repeatability. And if you can't, even with my random examples, can't repeat somebody's experiment, then probably the assumptions of that experiment are false. Okay? So I don't think it's so easy to say that, it's, you should give up on grading books, and, raws are always selling for more than graded. That's totally bogus. It's just not true. So I brought the receipts. I'm proving I hope that you understand that really his arguments were false. I can't validate them. They're not true. So that's my evidence. Hope you enjoy it. Let's get into the next question. Arthur Tripp wrote, have you read all the books you have? No. That's easy. It was built as a cheap entertainment with art and sometimes story. Why have a book if you can't read or enjoy in plastic? Well, I do enjoy it because it is in plastic. Now that might sound like, well, you can't read the book. Well, some books just have beautiful covers. I love looking at these covers. And to me, it's a form of artwork, and I enjoy the artwork. Some, like, I actually opened up my copy of Startling 49, and I actually went through it to try to read the stories. Stories were terrible. I was like so disappointed by Startling 49's interior stories. They just weren't as good as the cover. The cover is really awesome. So sometimes that cover can be my enjoyment out of it because it can be better than the stories. A lot of the time for me, I really don't like opening up, especially Golden Age books where they're a little bit more fragile. I don't like opening them up too much because I'm always paranoid about damaging them. I've had so many bad experiences where I've damaged really important books, and I just don't want to do that again. So I read my comics online, and I've read a small percentage of the books that I have. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy the ones that I have. I do enjoy them. As I said, I enjoy the artwork. And I think sometimes having them in plastic just makes them that much more enjoyable because I can hold it without fear. I can look at the, beautiful artwork. I can display it. So for me, I really do enjoy graded comics. I actually enjoy them somewhat more just because I feel like it's something I can, kind of hold on to and not worry that it's going to mangle the book. So to me, that's just really important. So hopefully that answers your question, but I do read a lot of my comics online. Okay. David Attiles wrote, do you get a sense that Golden Age comics are becoming more popular and sought after? I feel that more comic book sellers are looking for comics in this era to sell. Yeah, so here's the trick that I kind of discovered with my own collecting, is I sometimes get duplicates in my collection of Golden Age books. And what I'll do is I'll go to Comic-Cons or whatever, and I will actually bring my Golden Age books, and I'll either trade them or get cash for them. And I found that the reception that I receive for my Golden Age books has been very good, very warm. They're very keen. Actually, the dealers themselves will either instantly price the book for more than what I gave it to them at, and they'll put it up on the wall, and or they will put it in their own personal collections. Like they are that excited to get these Golden Age books. Uh, Even the ones where they say, "Oh, I don't think this book will sell," they'll actually tell me, "Oh, I don't think this book will sell," but they'll want it in their collection for sale, just because putting it up on the wall, putting one of these Golden Age books up on the wall, along with other books, makes people come over. They were saying that there is a draw to seeing a old, a Golden Age book up on the wall. It adds sort of authority and credibility to the dealer. So a lot of the time, they'll embrace some of the books just because they're cool Golden Age. I think people do have a respect for something with history, and I think in the future we'll see Silver Age and Bronze Age and all that, all the earlier ages the same way. Enough time passes, they become cooler. They become, oh man, that's a 100-year-old book. It's pretty cool. Might have been Bronze Age, but in the future it'll be a cool book. So the point is, people do gravitate to those older books because people do want to be in touch with that history, and especially with Golden Age, I think there's a bit of extra interest because of the fact that it was the dawn of an era of comics, where really the Golden Age is what brought comics to what, the way we see comics now was really developed in the Golden Age. And the variety of books from the Golden Age is another thing that really makes them sell. Because, you got pre-code horror, you got romance, you got horror, the crime, you got good girl, you got war books, you got all these different genres. And it really does add a little bit of excitement to that era. So I think a lot of dealers or collectors are kind of gravitating to, picking up a few. I can't think of any collector that would say, "Oh, I'd never buy a Golden Age book," even if one presented itself for cheap. People would always, I think people always would, as collectors, I think people would always want to have something kind of old and kind of cool in their collection from the Golden Age. So I think people are gravitating to the Golden Age. Another thing that really kind of helped the Golden Age in terms of increasing its value and increasing the popularity of Golden Age was actually the fall of the other ages. After the COVID sort of pump and dump, where the books had kind of gone crazy and then the prices kind of corrected and almost fell right through the floor, people were like, well, where's a safe place in comics where there is some, more constant value and more of a steady increase? And Golden Age was kind of that place. So I felt like a lot of the money had shifted from the other eras into Golden Age, and people were sort of putting more investment into Golden Age. The interesting thing about the hobby, and this is like totally not related to the question, but it's one thing I've been thinking about more and more lately, is that people, you'd think, when the market like drops considerably, people would go, "Hey, this is a great opportunity to buy all these comics." The actual opposite is the truth. That when people see a market going up, they're more likely to want to buy into that market. So when all the other eras kind of went down, instead of people saying, "Oh, I might as well pick up all the Silver Age grails that I wanted," or whatever books it is from the Bronze Age or whatever, they still went over to the Golden Age, even though the prices had been going up in the Golden Age. So people are buying against the trend. They're going where the market is going, and it's interesting that happens. Personally, I like to buck the trend, where if I feel like certain book, though really I've been going Golden Age a lot, but other than that, when I was buying silver and bronze and all my keys from those eras, people were not interested in those eras. I was sort of buying when the market was weak, and then they went up. I should have sold, but I didn't. Uh, but the point is, I try to I like to go places where normal collectors don't go. I remember I bought like all the Dave Stevens covers, and then they were like really really cheap at the time, and now they're super popular. It's like I'm buying based on what I like, and I try to buy where I see opportunities that I feel like the books are generally undervalued. But I just think it's always interesting how, you think, oh, that you see the market going up really, really high on one particular area, and you'd say, well, okay, maybe I should kind of stay away from that because, they're becoming way too expensive. But instead of that causing fear of the prices being too high, it actually encourages more people to buy those books. And the opposite is true about when the market is tanking. People feel like, oh, there's no real incentive, I guess, for people to buy those books because they feel like, they're going to be cheap. They'll probably continue to drop, and there's no reason to buy them. So I do feel like there's that sense, as you're describing, that people are moving to the golden age because there is that excitement of that era going up in value. So where everywhere else seems to be kind of flat or going down. So that's my thoughts on that. And that's all the questions for this week. I'd like to hear people's feedback. Please put it in the comments below. And thanks again for watching. Oh, and if you have a question you want answered for next week, put it in the comments below and I will do my best to answer it. Thanks again for watching. Bye for now.